So let's start today's video by sharing some interesting stories. When I first came to Australia, it took me nearly a month to find my first job. And that was with the help of a friend. That job was about washing dishes in a restaurant. Obviously, I didn't like it much because I didn't come here to clean dishes, but I kept trying to apply for other jobs, especially jobs in retail industry, because I knew those jobs were easier than washing dishes in a restaurant. So I kept trying and applying online, and my friends kept saying to me that you can't get job in the retail industry by just applying online. You need references for that. Although I agreed with them, but I still kept trying. And now comes the most interesting part. So after 6 months of kept trying and applying, I managed to get a job interview call from two major supermarkets in 1 week. One is Woolworths and other one Coles. Both of them called me for an interview. I went for both of their interviews, managed to pass those interviews, and they both selected me for the job roles. And I was very happy and surprised because at one time I wasn't getting any sort of response from these retailers, and now suddenly I'm getting job from both of these major supermarkets. So I ended up choosing one of them only, which was Woolworths. The reason for that was that Woolworths was much closer to my place where I was living. So that was a quick story in regards to how I managed to get a job in retail industry. But in this video, we will talk about what these retail jobs are, and I will share some important tips as well with you in how to get these jobs. So if you want to know more about this, please stick around and watch this video till the end. So first thing first, what are these retail jobs? So retail industry is quite huge in Australia. There are plenty of jobs available in this specific industry. So you can work for many different operations or businesses within the retail industry. So there are places like supermarkets, petrol stations, clothing stores, electronic stores, stationery stores, hardware stores, and many other stores in the shopping centers. And retail is one of the biggest employer here in Australia. So that is why a lot of international students, when they come to Australia, they want to work in retail industry. Makes sense. But apart from that, there are a few other benefits of working in retail as an international student. And I can share some of them with my own personal experiences as well. One of them is the consistency of work. So once you start working in these retail stores, you can easily get consistent work hours. You need to make some good relationships with your managers, but if you're doing a good job, then there is consistency of work that you can get in these retail places. Apart from that, the other thing that I really liked was the flexibility. In my case specifically, I was working in Woolworths supermarket and I was doing night shifts. So it really worked well during my university time because I was working in the night and I was studying in the daytime. So that helped me to cover not only my cost, but it was quite flexible with my university schedule. And that is something that many retailers can usually offer, as long as you can tell them your availability, so they can play around your university schedule or school schedule as well, as long as you can let them know nice and early. The pay rates are decent as well. They're not certainly groundbreaking pay rates, but they are decent enough in the student life. And because many of these retailers have stores all over Australia, so there are options for you to work in multiple stores as well. At one point in time, I did multiple shifts in different Woolworths stores as well. So that's the beauty. Even if you're moving from one place to the other, you can easily find a job in these retail stores. And one of the other benefit is the staff discounts as well. When you work for these retailers, you usually get some additional perks as a staff, such as discounts on your groceries or on other things if you are working with them. Now let's look at some of the requirements to work in these retail jobs. As from the qualifications point of view, there are no formal qualifications required for you to work in these retail jobs. It will be good if you have one, but it is certainly not necessary. Some people do certificate 4 in retail, but as I said, it's not compulsory to have one. I didn't have one. I don't have one still now, so that's perfectly okay. The other thing is the work experience. You do not need to have a lot of work experience in the retail if you want to work in this industry. Although there might be some jobs that might require some work experience, but if you don't have much, that's still perfectly fine. Now, you might not be required to have much work experience or qualifications. One thing certainly you need to have is skills and knowledge about customer service, because in most of these retail jobs, you will be dealing with customers on a regular basis. You must know how to deal with customers, how to provide them with a good customer service, how to deal with customer complaints, and some other relevant issues related with customers. And that's why it's very important that you must have a good communication skills. That's one of the key requirements for getting jobs in this industry. And my personal suggestion will be always to have a good attitude when you work working in this industry. And one of the usual requirement is to have a valid work visa, which if you are on a student visa subclass 500, you usually have up to 24 hours per week or 48 hours per fortnight as your work limitations. You can work unlimited hours during your official school holidays. So that is a must-have when you're looking for any jobs here in Australia. So these were the main requirements to work in this retail industry. Some retailers, however, that sells alcohol or liquor, you may need to have an RSA certificate if you want to work with them. That might be the only qualification you might require in order to work with these retailers. But just keep in mind that not every retailer will need that. Now, what are the different type of roles available in the retail industry? As I said, retail industry is huge and there are multiple roles available in the retail industry. Some of the popular ones include cashier, so people who take the money or deal with serving the customers. Then there are sales assistant who help people if they have any questions about buying a product or service. Another role could be about service station attendants, people who work in petrol stations or other service stations. Shelf fillers, people who are filling shelves in these retail stores. Actually, that was my job in Woolworths. Or it could be store person or customer service assistants and so on. So there are plenty of job opportunities in the retail industry. But these were some of the most popular roles. Now, what are some of the popular retailers here in Australia? So let's start with the supermarkets. There are 4 major supermarkets here in Australia. You have Woolworths, Coles, Aldi and IGA. Apart from these supermarkets, there are service stations like petrol stations and so on. So there are stores like 7-Eleven, BP, Shell, Ampol and so on. Also departmental stores where some of these job opportunities come up regularly. Stores like Kmart, Myers, David Jones, Target. And there are plenty of other major retailers like Bunnings, Officeworks, JB Hi-Fi, IKEA, and clothing stores like Cotton On, H&M, and so on. There are plenty of them here in Australia. And you can find most of these retailers in all major cities here in Australia. And some of them you can even find in the regional towns as well. Now the question comes in, where to find these jobs? Where are these jobs usually gets listed? So first thing, the usual suspects will be the online job portals or job websites. In Australia, you can look up these retail jobs on multiple online platforms such as Seek, LinkedIn, Indeed, Adzuna, Student Job Board, and many others. Apart from these online job websites, these retailers have their own online portals as well. So that is the second place I recommend you to check, the retailers' own websites. Because interestingly, some of these jobs don't get posted on these job ad websites. So these retailers may post some jobs only within their own portals as well. So it's very important that you sign up for some of these retailers' websites and create your profiles over there. Because as I said earlier, some of these jobs may not be actually listed on these online other job portals, and it might be only on the retailer's own job portal itself. The next way to find job here in Australia is about networking. As you might have already heard about it, that getting a job in Australia, one of the most popular way is through references, and you have to build those references here in Australia. And if you want to know how to build one, well, you need to do networking. We'll talk about networking side of the things in a couple of minutes as well. It's important to note that many of these retailers actually will accept online applications only. So some of these retailers may not accept the walk-in applicants, which means you can't just walk in and ask for a job over there. Now, let's talk about the steps to apply for these jobs. Now, first thing first, I suggest you to create your profiles on the career page of the website of these retailers. You don't need to create profile for every single retailer out there. I suggest you to pick ones that you're really interested to work with. So in my case, I actually created profiles with Woolworths, Coles, Myers, David Jones, and JB Hi-Fi. Those were the retailers I was very keen to work with. And luckily enough, I managed to get a job in one of those retailers. Now, once you have created a profile, you will see some of the jobs listed within that portal itself. And once you have chosen the one that you really like and you want to apply for them, and you will need to send a job application for that job through that portal itself. So usually you will need to upload your resume, your cover letter, and you have to also answer some questions in this online portal from these retailers. And once you have applied for the job, if they find your resume suitable, then you may have to go through an interview process. It could be face-to-face interview or online interview or group interviews as well. I went through a couple of interviews. It was one-on-one interview and a group interview that we had to go through. And these days there might be some online tests as as well that you need to complete before you can actually get started working with these retailers. And once you have passed these interviews and other tests, and if you're successful in your application, then you will get some induction and training, and after that you start working with them. That's a kind of usual process. Now before we end the video, here are a few tips that I want to give it to you before you start looking for these jobs. First thing first, that you must create profile on these websites of these retailers. It's important. Even if you go walk into these retail stores, you still need to make sure that you have an online profile with them. Now next tip is very important because it's about getting a reference. So if you can find someone who's already working in these supermarkets or in these retail stores, then it is much easier to get a job in these retail places. I didn't get into retail jobs through referencing, but many people actually do. And that is the way that many people actually end up getting jobs in these retail stores. But that doesn't mean you can't apply online. So if you can build up a relationship with someone who's already working in these retail stores, then it is much easier to get a job, especially if you want to work in retail. And some of you might be wondering how to build that relationship. We will suggest you a video to watch at the end of this video itself. One of my other tips will be to keep trying. I managed to get a job because I kept applying through these online portals for these job roles. My friends were suggesting that you are just wasting your time because you can't get a job through these online portals, but I still kept trying anyways. One of my key suggestions will be to don't give up and keep trying and keep applying regularly for these job roles. And also important to understand the time frames, because in certain time frames these retailers hire people more often than not. Especially before the Christmas holidays, there are many retailers who usually hire. Some of these retailers actually start hiring in August, September, October onwards. So you need to start looking up on these retailers as soon as possible, because some of these retailers start hiring it quite early for the Christmas season. As you know, Christmas is one of the biggest season for these retailers. So you want to make sure that you start applying for these jobs before that season starts. And last but not the least, my suggestion will be to always join these retail unions, because if you're working in these retail jobs, sometimes you may have issues related to your workplace, and if you do want to get them resolved, you need the help of these unions. So I highly recommend you to find a suitable retail union to join it. Now last but not the least, let's discuss about the pay rates for retail jobs in Australia. So as per the General Retail Industry Award 2020, the current minimum wage for part-time and full-time employees is around $24.73 per hour, and for the casual it is $30.91 per hour. Now that can certainly vary depending upon the bargaining agreement that your union have with these retailers. Depending upon the day itself, like if you're working on the weekday or weekend, that can certainly vary. But those numbers gives us some ideas on how much you can earn per hour in these retail jobs. And as per Seek website, the average salary for retail store manager here in Australia is around $60,000 to $70,000 per year. And if you want to know more about the different pay rates for different job roles here in Australia, we will leave a link of the article in the description box below. Now overall, if I have to share my personal experience working in a retail industry here in Australia, I would say I certainly enjoyed my time in that retail industry. Especially during my student life, it was one of the best jobs. Comparing to many other jobs, the job wasn't that difficult. It was considered to be a bit more respectable job than working as a dishwasher in a restaurant. It offered me flexible hours during my university years and offered me decent pay as well. So I can't fault working in these retail jobs at all. And that is one of the reasons why many international students love working in this industry. Now, I'm not suggesting that finding a job in this industry is quite easy, but you need to find a way and you have to create your network for getting a job in Australia. And I understand that many of you don't know anyone or don't have any references in Australia, but you need to build one. And if you want to know how to build a network and references in Australia, then I highly recommend you to watch this video that's coming up on screen right now. That's where I explain on how to build your network in Australia step by step. You can't afford to miss this video, so please go and watch this video and I'll see you there.